initial vote where you didn't certify, the board didn't certify. Can you tell me kind of what went through your mind then?
I kind of knew it was coming last Wednesday when we went through the paperwork of it because we couldn't even. I work a job and I have to take time off all the time. My boss okays that, but it shouldn't have taken that long to go through the paperwork last Wednesday because the state of Michigan put in a new law that we have to wait like 6 days before we can certify the election, which makes sense in case any absentee ballots come in later. We never had to do that until that new state law passed. So that's why we had to wait till Tuesday to come in and do that. I knew on Wednesday we meet at 1 o'clock after the election. We didn't start technically until about 2:30 because of disagreements right off the bat if you were looking at the stuff. Finally, I just said, of course we're in a smaller setting and just the League of Women Voter lady was there observing. I just said, we have got to get started here. I mean, we've already wasted an hour and a half doing nothing but discussion, and they finally agreed in their. I hate to say that everything is totally wrong what was being said, but we had to start going through the paperwork to see if it was what was going on, you know. And all we do in the books, we look at make sure all the poll workers sign where they're supposed to. The seals have been recorded, which is that part is the administrative part. The biggest thing is we look at the poll book, which is the voters have to match up to how many ballots were run through the machine. If you got that, say it's 100 voters, 100 voters, 100 ballots are run through, that's cool. But if it's 110 run through, well, you got a problem. Everything matched up in all the district areas that were required. So once we finish that, we have to wait a week anyhow to certify. And I really felt because of the circumstances it was going to be a problem. We met at 1 o'clock again. I left out of the room at 2:15 because I couldn't take it anymore. I got kind of angry. I didn't want to regret something I would say that was inappropriate. And I left at 2:15. I know what time because I got a nice big clock in my brand new truck. But that's anyhow, got a little off topic there. But because we weren't getting anywhere, and it was really tough. And I've been doing this a long time, and I couldn't believe what was happening, to be honest. And then one of the ladies' husband was there observing and said that I was against freedom because I suggested she shouldn't be on the board if you believe you can't certify because there's nothing wrong. And he said I was against freedom, so that ticked me off because that made me angry. It's a better term. And because I served 20 years in the United States Navy, don't talk to me about freedom. That's what I wanted to say. But I just walked out because I was starting to get my blood pressure up. So they didn't sign, and there was no sense in sitting there. Neither one would sign. They brought in an alternate because the original board member, that Sema, was sick. And so they brought in an alternate that was sworn in. Nancy did that. That was done in front of us. That was okay. But she refused to sign. And she refused to sign before we even started the discussion. So she had my opinion, I shouldn't throw that out there, but it is my opinion that she already had her mind made up that she wasn't going to sign. Well, then Bonnie definitely wasn't going to sign. So we were at a stalemate. So I didn't see any sense in sitting there. And then later on that evening, Teresa called me, and also I spoke with, the next day I spoke with Nancy to find out what occurred. Nothing happened. They stayed another hour and a half or whatever it was, but nothing was going anywhere.
Just for logistical purposes here, we got your name. What is her name and the other board members?
Nancy is the Delta County Clerk, Nancy I don't know how to, Porowski, or, yeah, I can't pronounce her name. She got married, and I liked her old name, it was Coolidge, but anyhow, because it was easy to pronounce.
Sure.
And then there's Teresa Nelson, Sima, I don't know her last name often.
Deeds.
What is it?
I think it's Deeds.
Maybe it is Deeds. And then there's Bonnie Hekala. I don't know how to spell it.
And she's the one who read the statement and everything.
Correct.
What does a typical election certification look like for you guys? I imagine it's probably pretty.
Well, on the bigger elections like in November, it takes a little longer because you got to go through. Should have been a piece of cake. Well, there's only 2 names on the thing, and it's smaller because it's not every area. None of Gladstone and that was those other 2 commissioners, because it was a recall, weren't even involved. So I thought we'd be done. I thought I'd be back to work at 3 o'clock. Well, on that Wednesday, didn't work out that way because we took an hour and a half to discuss things that aren't true and we shouldn't have been discussing. And it's not our job. Like I said, it's actually against the law for us to do what they wanted us to do. And talking forensic audit and the machines can be hacked with a chip and all this stuff. The machines are hooked up to electricity. All they do is read the ovals. That is it. I've been on several recounts. The highest I think it ever changed was 2 votes. And I've been on all kinds of 108th district one time, school yes or no, city council. I can't even remember one out at Escanaba Township. I don't remember what that position was, but you bring in your poll workers and all that, and what happens usually if it's off at all, it's because, like, say, when you look at the actual ballot, you can see what they voted, intent. They'll put an X, well, the machine probably didn't read that. And that's if there's a difference of 1 or 2, that's what it was, could be. Another possibility is some people have colored in red ink, like the AV ballots, which is absentee voter. If they use red ink, it may not pick it up. You really should use black. That's one good thing about this. They should use black, if you play this part, black pen or blue pen or a number 2 pencil and color the oval in completely, because then it'll definitely read it. But either way, I believe the recounts are a great way to do an audit, because I'm not afraid of a recount, because it shows how accurate those machines are. You can't hack into those, and I'm not even a tech guy. I know you can't do that. So, but I knew it was going to be a problem.
So kind of just in summary, like what's happening here? What's going on for our viewers? Just kind of Crayola simple it.
I personally, just is my opinion, I think it's just a bunch of conspiracy stuff that has been generated over the last couple of years nationwide and national level too. And I don't know where they're coming from. I don't understand it, because I know the system of what we do here in Delta. I don't care what even Detroit, I do care what they do, but I care about this county. I said it gives our county a black eye. I think this whole thing is crazy, and it also gives the Board of Canvassers, the people should have trust in what we do. And like I said, I remained under the radar until this whole thing happened. Nobody even knew who I was, and that's how it should be. I'm just doing my job. And then if they want to do a recount, whether it be the candidates or, like Nancy said, you can, the schools, a principal or whoever can request that. There was one I did it was in Gladstone, the City Hall is where we all met, and they did it, and I got to talk to the principal. It was like the one over in Garden, I think that's Big Bay School. Anyhow, I got to talk with him. I liked the guy, and I thought, I hope you get they only need 1 vote. Well, actually, technically you need 2, because on a school election, a tie, they lose, okay, in a village. So they did all the recount and everything. TV6 was there for that one, actually, and fortunately they didn't want to talk to me. They wanted to talk to Nancy, and it came out exactly 100% of yes, no, and that's what they usually happen. It doesn't change. A recount will not change a recount unless you're within, I'd say 3 to 5 at the most, you know.
So what are the next steps? I mean, based on what took place today, I guess Bonnie voted or didn't vote.
She abstained. I should have done that rules of order thing, but I'm not used to this stuff.
Yeah, sure.
But I should have said, is there any abstentions? Because really that's what she did. She didn't vote.
Right.
You know?
So what's the next step then?
The next step is if they want, I think the candidates have to request, because it is candidates involved, a recount. And I don't know, to my knowledge, nobody's is requesting a recount as of right now. So that's the next step, if they want to do a recount. All this other stuff, whether it be forensic and some of the other things they were talking about, trying to look at voter. It came up in our Wednesday meeting about looking at the voting names and seeing if they're registered to vote. Well, that's not our job. Our job is to certify what I just told you. And the voting things if it's an AV voter, the clerks, all the clerks throughout the county, verify the signature. Okay, so that's verified. And they don't run it through until, election day. Then as far as if you go to the polls, you fill out and we keep all these, or they're kept, and at the individual sites, Wells Township or wherever. And they fill out a sheet when you go to vote, name, address, and all that. And then they take your driver's license, the poll worker does, and they scan it. It pops up on the computer. That is your verification if you're a registered voter. Between that and the AV signatures, it's already been verified. We don't have the authorization, despite what anybody says. I know the law and the rules, and we don't have that authorization to do that. I don't want to do something that we're not authorized to do. If we would have did last Wednesday what they wanted us to do, we'd be committing, technically, I think it's a felony to do with some kind of election fraud. I'm pretty sure it is. And I got 2 letters, which I already knew most of them. One from the Attorney General, all the canvassers did, not just me, and one from the Secretary of State's office. On my email this morning at work, read through them. I knew most of it anyhow, but they're basically saying, do your job. In so many words, and we got to follow the state constitution. We have to follow we take an oath just like everybody else does. And the United States Constitution along with the Michigan State Constitution. And if we would have did what they wanted us to do, we'd be going against our oath of office, and I wasn't going to do that no matter what.
No, of course not. Somebody like yourself who's a Navy veteran, you take oaths seriously.
Yep.
So the 3 of you, so it is certified then, because
Correct.
It was 3 to the 1 abstention.
Actually, she signed, I think. There was 4 names on there. I think she abstained from the voting.
But did sign.
That's correct. It's certified. You only really need 3, technically. If she would have refused to sign, it's a quorum, and all we needed was 1 person to sign.
Sure. And so those candidates now have, was it 48 hours after right now, today?
I think it's today, or don't quote me on all that part of it, because I'm not positive, but they don't have very long to decide if they want to do a recount. And then they bring in poll work. Like I said, that's the process. You bring in a bunch of people to look at it, and that's the way it should be.
From your summary of things, the number of votes match the number of
correct.
ballots.
These are accurate. If this would have gone to the state level, which I don't know what she was talking about when it doesn't, if we weren't to certify this by Monday, the 20th, if we would, that's why the meeting was set up for Monday originally at 9. If that wasn't certified, we'd have to pack up everything and take it downstate. All this, clerks, the board, and you know who pays for that? The taxpayers of Delta County, because there's no money in the budget for this. It's never ever happened, before here. And so that taxpayers would have, I don't know how they would have paid for it, but it would have come out of it, and they pay for motel, automobile, mileage, all that kind of stuff. and for what they would have, the state board of, I 100% believe they would have said the same thing we are here and certified it. And then, you know, then we'd look even sillier within the state of Michigan. And I don't like it. I grew up here. I graduated high school here and went away for 20 years, like in the military. And I love this area, except for I don't like the winter so much. But I love this area, and I raised all my kids. My youngest is, you know, a senior this year. And
we got off like this winter, I think. But
yeah.
I think he's got a question.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No problem. What were those things you were signing?
That's just saying that we're certifying the election on May 7th, and Nancy signs, because she is an advisor to the board, even though she doesn't get a vote. She signs on the bottom as the Delta County clerk. I lost my train of thought there when she said, I'm the clerk. Yeah, I know, but Delta County clerk, and then the 4 board of canvassers always sign.
Okay. And yeah, but before we learned how she was going to vote, Bonnie said she was, she ended up abstaining, but she said she was voting under coercion. What do you make of that?
Well, my opinion on that, I know they had a Republican meeting last night, and at their normal meeting, and I also think because of the 2 letters that was sent by the Attorney General's office and the Secretary of State, there was probably some pressure put on them, not from us, you know, I mean, I'm trying to stay low key, and apparently I can't with all these cameras in front of me, but I didn't call anybody. Everybody called me, and it wasn't pressure from us, you know, and I think it was pressure within her own party, because technically she was doing the wrong thing, and everybody knows it within their own party. That's my opinion on that.
You spoke about loving this community and it gives the community kind of a black eye. What do you want to see happen going forward?
Well,
how do we get back on the track to normalcy?
I hate this. My opinion is we got to have people with integrity on this board, for one thing, and I feel I do have that because I'm technically a Democrat, and we lose all the time normally, or a lot, put it that way. We haven't held a lot of offices over at this level or at the state level much at all since I've been doing this. Once in a while, okay? I would never do what was done because it's not right. So you got to have a person that wants to just look at what we're supposed to look at, certify what we're supposed to certify based on what we see, and then let the chips fall where they may if they do a recount or whatever. That is not for us to do. So I think that's one thing, and my opinion is Bonnie should not be on this board, period, because she is going against her oath. It's not a vindictive thing. I don't even know her other than when we meet for these board of canvassers thing, and she hasn't been on all that long, a couple of years, I think. But what this was against your oath. It really was. And I believe in when you take an oath, you've got to obey that oath. You know?
She's not on my good side. She turned me down for interviews.
But you know, that's what I believe. I believe, and I think the board of canvassers, once they're seated, I think they have the authorization to do that, because I'm not positive on that, but I think that's how it goes, because they appoint us technically. The parties put in the names, and then when your term is up, and then the board votes that John Myers can be on here for another term. Okay, and once they do that, they're appointing us. We're appointed. We're not elected. So I think the board can remove the person. And I want people with integrity that's going to be on here. I served with tons of Republicans over the years, and I'm not going to name them, but I never had a problem with any of them. I mean, yeah, they were maybe on different sides of issues, but we really don't talk about issues. We do our job and got out. You know, they might talk. The big conversation is Grant, because most of them are older than me, because they have the time more to do it than somebody that works. And most of the conversation was always grandchildren and that kind of stuff, not about issues. We don't I don't want to talk politics. This isn't, to be honest, it is not a political issue in my opinion. This is doing the right thing to keep the integrity of the election. Yes, sir.
Do you think Bonnie's concern about possible election fraud is genuine? You spent, a good amount of time with her.
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't know her heart or any of that. I know it's not right what she's doing. I don't know if she could believe it. I don't know. It's not the truth, but she could believe it.
I guess if you were in her shoes and you felt that there was wrong done and you're being told that this position you took that you thought was to help oversee election security, that there are things you can't do. Mm-hmm. What do you think about that? How would you feel if you were in her shoes? I guess how would you handle the situation?
That's a good question. I think what I would do is still follow the procedure, because there's ways, if you the forensic thing that she's talking about, which I don't even know where that's coming from, or even looking at the vote, that would be legal issues that the courts would decide, not the Board of Canvassers. And as far as a recount, it's either the public, if it's a school thing, or the candidates. That's that procedure. I would trust the system, because the system's set up that way. That's what I would do, but it doesn't mean, I don't know her heart. I don't, so.
Yeah, I mean, it's on the candidates now, if they want.
Correct.
If they want to, it's on them. Like, the Board of Canvassers' role is simply to say, do the number of voters match the number of ballots that we have? And if they do, then certify.
Yeah.
Correct?
And I think one time there was one where somehow a ballot got hung up, and when we went to do a recount, we said we had to get that machine, because somehow it got hung. They were one ballot off before we started a recount. I forget which one it was. I've been on a lot of them. And it got hung up somehow in the machine. That's why there was one ballot missing. But they found it because I forget who suggested, hey, it might be hung up in the machine. And it did get hung up after it was registered, but it got hung up, so the ballot didn't match the whole book. Sure. But we resolved that. And most of your stuff gets resolved rather easily, because Nancy will call either the clerks, or if there's a signature missing, we'll get the poll worker to sign the book, and usually we get everything done with. A big election takes about all day or half a day Wednesday and all day Thursday. So, and then you got to come back a week anyhow later. So,
well, that's all the questions I have.
Yeah. Go ahead.
One more, I don't want to rehash too much our conversation the other day.
Yeah.
I did want to talk again briefly just about the last meeting and
the signature meeting.
Yes.
Yeah, I was
the one where
by the time I left there, I was pretty frustrated.
Yeah, can you just talk about the lead up of what?
Well, because of all the things they wanted us to do, whether it be to bring the ballots in and for us to recount, I wasn't going to do that. Agree to that. And then to get the list of voters, you can't do that. You can't do anything until it's certified. And what would, even Nancy asked her, well, what's the purpose of getting a list of voters? Well, to see if they're registered. Well, I said right away, that is not our job. It's not our job. And the forensic thing, I don't understand it. I'm not a tech person, but you can't. They were saying that there was a chip, the alternate was saying there was a chip in the machine that could switch the colored ovals. How is that? I don't even know. I'm not a tech person, but how is that even possible? And then who put the chip in the machines? And they went around to each individual district to put a chip in? It doesn't make sense.
Do you know whether or not the machines were checked for chips?
Every machine beforehand is verified. They run it's called a zero tape, and they make sure that everything is kosher before they even start running ballots through, and that's done by your poll workers. And you get the tapes. technically we get 2 folders. One is the bigger one, which comes to Nancy gets one and the Board of Canvassers gets one, but we pull everything out of both folders because there's extra tapes and stuff. So we verify all the numbers. We go through what each candidate got too. But what we look at first is the total number of votes against the poll book. If that is correct, then that's another thing they get confused about sometimes, because maybe somebody didn't vote especially in a big election. You don't have to vote in every area, okay? You could vote one area, say presidential. You might just vote for the presidential one, skip everything else. Well, then the individual numbers aren't going to add to how many ballots are run through. It doesn't matter, because the number of ballots to the poll book is what matters. Because you don't know how they're voting in between. You don't even know who the voter is. You have no idea. You got to list the name of the voters, but you don't know how they voted, because we don't know that. Nobody does. You're not supposed to. They tear the number. They got a little secret thing that you shove into the machine. They rip the number off, and you put your own ballot in, and you should watch the counter to make sure it's switched over. That's what you're supposed to do. So.
I hope this all gets sorted out, man. I'm sorry you got to go through all this.
Me too. I really don't like it, to be honest with you. I can't.
Well, the stuff you said about giving the community a black eye, it's true. You know, I mean,
We looked pretty dumb.
I don't know. There's another community that says, finally somebody, standing up for, speaking for the quiet ones.
Yeah, that's
Speaking
true,
for the what?
The quiet ones. They were sitting over here.
Well, I've been remaining quiet until this happened. I mean, I just don't believe in all this election fraud stuff. I believe overall, well, in this state, we got a great system, because this ballot paper, you can look at the paper ballot, where a lot of states have computer. Now that's a problem, maybe.
Are these the?
Is Nancy still here?
Are these the ballots? I mean, I'd like to.
No, they're not ballots. They're just the poll book and the tapes.
Oh.
But she's still got to put all that away. Is Nancy down in her office to the right? Huh?
She's gone.
No, she can't be.
The deputy outside said she's gone.
Well, let me ask him. Did he say that she was gone?
Mm-hmm.
Huh?
He did.
Is she gone?
I'm the only one left.
Can we, man, this ain't ballots, but we should lock this up somewhere. How?
You got her number?
Yeah, I got a phone number here. Some cheapers, creepers.